Happy New Year and welcome to the first Convex Conversation of 2025 with me, broadcaster Helen Fospero. This is our 200th episode, so an exciting milestone. At a time when we're trying hard to stick to our New Year resolutions, I'd like to introduce you to a dynamic young woman who hopes her historic success in horse racing is changing the narrative. Pioneering jockey Khadijah Mellah from Peckham became the first UK jockey to compete in a horse race in Britain wearing hijab. Just over a minute later, she made history again by riding her stunning mount Haverland to victory in the Magnolia Cup at Goodwood, a charity event in support of well-being of women. Khadijah was just 18 at the time and new to the world of horse racing. A documentary, Riding the Dream, was made about her story and led to the creation of the Riding a Dream Academy to help young people from underrepresented urban areas pursue a career in racing. 5 years on, she's here to reflect on her story, the impact she's having, and how she's changing perceptions in sport and among young Muslim women.
Khadijah, you are a brave woman racing at Goodwood when you were just 18. You've become such a powerhouse and a positive role model. Tell me a little bit about you and perhaps what sets you apart.
Helen, firstly, thank you so much for such an incredible introduction. I am so excited to be here and to talk about my story. Goodwood was such a special moment for me and so much has happened since then. But yeah, thank you again for having me and I'm excited to tell you about my story.
It's a pleasure to have you and we will talk in depth, obviously, about Goodwood and what that experience was like. But tell me about what's at the heart, really, Khadijah, of what you're trying to do.
So it all started really with me and my obsession with horses. Ever since I was very young, I was very animal obsessed, very outgoing, adventurous. I'm very hyperactive. I'm very inquisitive. I love trying new things. I'm very also sporty and athletic, and I love being competitive. That's just me by nature. It's how I've been raised. My parents are very ambitious people, and they've always expected me to be the same. And obviously being from Peckham, I've always been pushed to try and reach for the stars and try and make it to a better place. My parents are immigrants, and as the first generation to be born within the UK, they always really tried hard to give me and equip me with as many opportunities and to push me as hard as I can so I can live a better life than them. So I think it definitely stems from my family and parents, this ambition to try new things, and also taking on the opportunity to try horse racing definitely stems from there, I think. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Initially, it was quite difficult transitioning from just riding slow, sort of overweight, chunky riding school cobs, like the normal ponies, and then going on to these like athletic Formula One racehorses was like a huge shock to my system. But I tried to take it within my stride and, just picked up the pieces. And even though I failed my first assessments and fell off quite a few times, we made it through, passed the assessments and won the race. So yeah, it was a bit of a miracle, but also I don't believe in miracles.
You probably believe in a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I believe in hard work and also just my faith.
Now, I was quite surprised to learn that there is actually riding stables in Brixton, which is the one you learnt to ride at, because it's so built up and urban and it's not really where you expect horses. But tell me about the horse club there and how special a place that was and why you went in the first place.
I actually thought it was a theatre club initially because I couldn't believe that there was a riding club in Brixton. I have to retract my statement really because I do believe miracles happen because Ebony Horse Club was a miracle for me. I just couldn't believe that there was horses there. And in all of the parts of inner city London, for there to be a riding stables 10 minutes from where I live was insane. And anyone that knows me genuinely since I was aged probably about 5 to 7, I always ramped on about horses, animals. I wouldn't shut up about them and I had zero access to animals. So it was just like, where is this obsession coming from? And it was from books, from watching animations. And I lived in a council estate, and don't tell the housing estate that I was part of, but I wasn't allowed pets, but my parents sneaked in a cat and stuff. And I managed to find out about Ebony because my mum walked past the club, saw a leaflet and asked about it. And normally riding sessions and riding clubs are out in Kent, so quite far away, and normally about £25-30 a session, which is just way out of my parents' budget. So finding out about Ebony Horse Club was, wow, £7 a session. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're never going to find riding at that price. And also, it wasn't just hop on, we'll lead you around, and that'll be your 30 minutes done. It was actually interacting, building a rapport with the horses, learning how to take care of them, building from last week's session developing your riding. It wasn't just like a beach ride where you just sit on a horse and have a little tour and off you go. It was actually building and developing horsemanship, which is exactly what I wanted. And yeah, I volunteered extra hours. I kept harassing my coaches, please, can I canter? Am I ready to canter? Am I ready to jump? And they were just like, take it easy, slow down, be patient. Patience is definitely not my thing.
So how did you make that extraordinary leap from Ebony Horse Club, which I saw you describe as your safe place on Instagram, which I thought was a lovely thing to say. It's obviously holds a very special place in your heart. But how did you go from the riding school horses to suddenly finding yourself on a magnificent racing horse?
I'd have to always credit Ollie Bell from ITV Racing. He came to visit the club. Again, the racing world is slightly disconnected from most of the equestrian world, but also just generally inner city riding schools. It's sort of a unique space. Once you're in it, it's a beautiful industry, but it's hard to sometimes break into. And Ollie, thinking outside of the box, went into Ebony Horse Club and heard about what we do. And he's actually from South London, so that's where his link was. And he came in to talk to some of the students at the club, and he made a proposition. He was like, why don't we get one of your young people to try some horse racing at a very amateur basic level, and we'll fund their training, facilitate it, do a little documentary or track their progress and maybe capture some of the footage and see where it goes. Is there anyone that would be up for it? And the only requirements is that the young person would be 18, a female that can ride in the Magnolia Cup. So I looked at the dates, and it was me and one other girl who qualified in terms of age, because it's a youth club, so everyone was quite young. And I was 17, but I was about to turn 18. So they were like, why don't you give it a go? And then by the time you turn 18, you can do the race. And I was like, I've got my A-levels. I was actually in quite a difficult space during sixth form because of family dynamics, my religious identity, school, being a teenager generally. And Ebony Horse Club is my safe place, has always been. Horses have also just been a huge release and a safe place for me. So any opportunity or any link to continue riding and to develop my riding was just another win to me. So I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't even think twice. I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then my parents were like, but your studies? And I was like, I'll balance them. Obviously, I didn't. I tried.
You're revealing lots of secrets. We've got the illegal cat and the fact that you didn't really balance your A-levels, but I bet they were super proud when you crossed that winning line. I bet they were super proud you even took part, never mind cross the winning line. But what was the whole experience like? What was it like the first time you actually sat on a racehorse?
Just impatience, eager to get on with it, super excited. I remember thinking, wow, this horse is quite skinny, but obviously it's because I was used to being on these chunky, slow ponies. So I just didn't even realize how athletic these horses would be. Also, my initial introduction was very safe, steady, calm. And then they threw me into the deep end a few sessions later, and I absolutely lost control, went way too fast, overtook a few people. And it was a nightmare, really, and I thought I was going to die. But I was like, you know what, let's not base my entire racehorse experience from that one isolated incident.
Did you come off?
No. But I'd say I kind of wish I did. I can't explain it until you're there, but when you're on a racehorse that's going a million miles per hour and you've got zero control, you kind of wish you're on the ground, because
yeah, it's feel a safer place being on the ground at that point, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's when because you don't know what the next 5 seconds is going to look like. You could end up in a tree. The little racehorses, when they bolt, you've got no chance.
But it didn't put you off.
No. For a second, I was like, this isn't for me. And then I was like, actually, let's just push through. I think I rode a second horse that day and it was bliss. And I was like, sometimes it's going to go right and sometimes it's going to go wrong. And I just have to take the good when I have the good. And if it goes badly, just glaze over.
Such a steep learning curve. Take us back to 2019 and Goodwood, which is one of the world's most famous racetracks. What was the whole experience like?
Surreal. It's completely out of my comfort zone. I feel like that 6-month period was just every single day was a new day. And it was very overwhelming because, I've competed in different sports, but never on that scale, never to an audience's spectatorship that big. And just the Goodwood track is incredible. If you look at just visually, you're just like, this isn't real. And I remember the day before watching the professional jockeys come across the line, the buzz, the audience, people dressed up. Again, I'd only been to the races once or twice So the atmosphere was just completely new to me as well. I don't know if you've been to the races, but I definitely stick out a bit. There's not a fair, now there is, it's getting better, but there's not many people of colour. So it was just new, so many new experiences, new dynamic, new atmosphere. And yeah, it was a lot to take in. But most of all, as an athlete, that's just who I am. I was just so eager for the competition, for the race, to get my head down and to do my best and win for Haverland. So yeah.
Tell us a bit about Haverland.
Oh my God, it's Havers. Yeah, Haverland is the best boy in the entire world. And I'm very lucky to say that 2 years ago, the trainer that let me ride him initially, he picked up an injury, Haverlanded, just after my race. It was a few months after, I think a year after. And the trainer, Charlie Fellows, asked me if I'd like to take care of him for the rest of his life. So he's now my horse.
What a beautiful thing to do. I think you credit Haverland with making you fall in love with racing in the first place. He sounds a really special mount. What was going through your mind during the race when you were in that heat of the moment and you were just going for it?
The best way to describe Haverland as a racehorse is what I'd best describe as the safe comfort toy. He is an adorable, small 14-hand racehorse. Didn't quite, perform massively on track in his racing career. He was retired just before my race, was taken out of retirement to race with me. And I remember first seeing him and he was just walking around his box and I was like, he's kind of small, but also there's a bit about him, but also, is there another racehorse I could ride? Because he just didn't look that intimidating. And I was like, I want something that's going to win. And they were like, no, he'll take care of you. Trust me on this. Khadijah, he will give you a good ride. And you might not win, but you'll have a good experience. And that matters more than anything else. You'll have a safe, positive experience. And then a week and a half before my race, I galloped him for the first time. And he showed some real speed. And I was like, okay. I'd say, again, he was just a force to be reckoned with, but also an underdog. He's very unassuming. When I rode him every morning, he never caused me any stress, any drama. He was very easy to communicate with. A lot of racehorses, because of their high energy feed, they're quite, you can have arguments with them quite a lot, and they always want to go too quickly or don't want to go the direction you want them to go. You're always sometimes negotiating with a racehorse. And with Haverland, it was never an argument. It was always so easy. I felt like I was very in sync with him. He understood me really well. And yeah, so for my race, I knew exactly where to position him and when to ask and how to ask him to pick up and get quicker. And, I knew how much stamina he had. I just knew him so well and he took care of me. And when I asked him, he really ran his little legs off. So I owe him so much.
What happened at the end? Because it was a really close finish, wasn't it? And you did win, but it was close.
Yeah. Yeah, the finish line was shortened slightly because a lot of previous riders had fallen by the bend because it's an amateur race and some of the jockeys found it difficult pulling up or going around that corner at such high speed. So the finish line was a little bit earlier and I asked him to finish by the early finishing post. So it looked quite tight, but it was actually half a stride, if not a stride, ahead. And he genuinely pushed that last furlong with all his might. And I was so surprised. I broke down at the finishing line because I couldn't believe it. I thought I was going to come fourth. I thought at best fourth. With his rating, he's rated 66. And it was a race where the highest rated horse was 80. That was 20, 24, rating points away from where he should have. There was horses that were much better than him. And he managed to overtake them and fly past them. So I was over the moon.
He sounds like he has a very similar spirit to you, actually, and that you were made a fabulous team. What was the atmosphere like? Because there you are, finishing, not expecting to win. And I would imagine the scenes afterwards, in those few minutes afterwards, are quite overwhelming as you head towards the winner's enclosure.
Yeah, I completely broke down and I cried so much. I think now that I know racing, and I've been in the industry a lot longer and I've watched different races and how jockeys remain so professional and composed. And I was like, wow. I could tell why it was such a breath of fresh air to see me win because, most jockeys punch the air, say a thank you to the owners, to the connections, and then on to the next ride. And I didn't know that. I was just coming from a very authentic, young, naive perspective. I was just there having a good time and I won a race and thought this is insane. And also so many people had put quite a lot on the line in terms of saying yes when they really should have said no, a lot of people put a lot of trust and faith that I would at least get to the race, let alone finish the race, to win for so many people that had given me that opportunity. Complete outsider, 3 months to get race fit, to get race ready I didn't know it at the time, but it's literally absurd. It was a miracle, really, when you think about it, because normally it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years of training to make it to track. Now that I'm an amateur jockey, it's taken me a year and a half. So to be able to win a race in 3 months was ridiculous. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, she won wearing a hijab. I'm like, yes. Also, I won after 3 months of training. That is ridiculous. And also borderline somewhat unsafe.
Tell me about the decision to wear your hijab, because obviously you became the first UK jockey to win a race wearing a hijab. And I think that, to me, sends out a very powerful message about who you are and how perhaps you're trying to break down barriers and show young Muslim women in a very different light. Was it a conscious decision to wear it? Is that just you and what you do, or did you really think about it?
Since I was a toddler, really, I've always worn hijab, and it's, my faith has been ingrained into my fabric of existence. And now as an adult, it's a more conscious decision to wear it. And even during sixth form and during my teenage years, it was a conscious identity issue that I had to choose to wear the hijab continuously. And it still is sometimes a struggle. But to me, like for the race and for my training, it was second nature, and it wasn't something that I contemplated too much, because again, my biggest priority was getting my fitness, my strength, my balance, my skill set, and, to make it to pass these assessments. I'd say that the jockey fitness assessments and the riding assessments are unbelievably difficult, and people don't necessarily see that part of racing. They just think, oh, you hop onto the horse and the horse does the work. On my social media, I try and portray exactly how much work that goes into being a jockey. I really hope I do it justice. For me, the biggest priority wasn't necessarily what I was wearing or what I looked like, was just being an athlete and trying to be competitive. And to this day, I'm still trying to be a competitive athlete within the field and not just a token Muslim girl. And we never set out to try and break history, to make history, or it was an accident a few weeks before the race. The Daily Mail or something was like, wait, is there any records of any Muslim women that have ridden in any races in the UK? And me and Ollie Bell looked at each other and were like, I don't know. And then he was like, I'll do a bit of homework and see. And he went through the horse racing archives, found nothing. And then he was like, I guess you're the first. And I was like, great. I just want to ride Haverland, but that's just now a bit of added pressure. But again, for me, and I've said this in my interviews after the race, being a positive story for the Muslim community, especially Muslim women, is a huge relief, because I grew up watching my mum getting eggs thrown at her. I grew up watching my mum getting verbally harassed, physically assaulted because of the fact that she wore hijab. And it's a lot better now, but during the Boris Johnson times, 9/11 times, it was not a fun time for the Muslim community. There was actually like leaflets and WhatsApp messages being passed around. My mum used to carry milk because she'd be scared that we were being threatened as a community, that people would go around throwing acid at any Muslims. That's just a quiet side of what the Muslim community has had to deal with. And it's never really highlighted on the news because it's just not a narrative that people care, or that the news or mainstream news cares about sometimes. We're always depicted as villains, we're always depicted as terrorists, and never really like the victims, when a lot of the case we are the victims of terror ourselves. So yeah, I was really relieved to see like a positive. Anytime I see a hijabi or a Muslim person winning in the news, I'm like, finally, something that's actually authentic and real and positive about my community, because that's what most of my community is about.
That's actually heartbreaking to sit here and listen to stories like that of your mum. Just explain to us, Khadijah, you wear hijab so beautifully. I don't really know much about it, its meaning and what it means to you and what it means in your faith. And I'm slightly ashamed to say that because I should know that.
Don't be ashamed at all. I think my job is to share and educate and to hopefully help people understand more about my religion. I think the more education and connection and discussion that happens around anything that's new, the less ignorance and tension and negativity there is. For me, hijab is also to do with modesty, and in a society where we base a lot of judgment on external appearance and beauty, I think hijab takes that away and tries to focus on the character, intelligence, and what people have to say and what people have to offer and less about what they look like. Of course, you know, I still make sure that I look professional and I look as good as I can and I feel confident, but also I don't think I should always be solely judged on my appearance. Equally, people do judge me for wearing the hijab, but I'd rather someone judge me for my upholding of my faith than just like my beauty. And society can be quite shallow at the minute, and wearing hijab sometimes protects me from that and protects me from male objectification, which I think is a huge issue in this day and age. I believe that specific men in my family and whoever I decide to be with only have the luxury of seeing me fully and seeing what I look like in all aspects and areas. And I think until a man specifically proves to me that he's worthy of that, then I don't believe most men should. So,
has life got any easier for mum?
Yes, now that a lot of hijabi women and Muslim women are being more outspoken, you know, not just me, but so many other Muslim women are now taking courage to speak about their journeys and to break through in different industries and be more active on social media. I think the narrative is changing about Muslim women. We're not these timid, oppressed, villainous individuals. And even for niqabi women, the narrative is changing and it is getting better. Still, so much more can be done. My mum did used to wear niqab, but she took it off because of fear for her safety. So I'm not sure if she'd ever put it back on, or I'm sure there's still a few Muslim women that are wary depending on their location. But especially where we live, it's a very vibrant, diverse community. And I think we're lucky that London has that. But yeah, things are getting better, but there's still lots of room for improvement.
It was accidental. The story behind the win was kind of accidental in a way. It's led to some great things because a film was made, wasn't it, of your story?
Yes. So initially they told me they'd document the journey. And I thought, it would be like a GoPro or something. I thought it would be like a handheld camera, a few photos, someone taking some videos on the iPhone. Turns out it was a proper film crew, producers, and it was like an 11-day film shoot. They were capturing moments of me crying, like not in a fun way, across the finish line in a, I hate this, I want to go home way. And I was like, this is not exactly what I signed up for, but I understand that this is part of the journey. And, you know, they captured it so beautifully, and like, the final product, I still watch it and it takes my breath away. And, you know, I remember people messaging me after watching the documentary, being inspired. And to me, that's just like a dream come true. So I'm very grateful for them. And we didn't realize there'd be a fairy tale ending. It was just Khadijah Mellah starts and is trying to be a jockey. Like, this is just a very authentic depiction of my journey. It's the truth, it's real life. And for me to be able to look back at that and remember so vividly, not only through my memories, but through this documentary, is a huge privilege. I'm a very lucky woman.
And the fact that Haverland got you there and he's now your horse, that's very special. Is he in Brixton?
No, unfortunately. He loves big open spaces. Not a city boy at all. He's down with me in Epsom. I moved to Epsom to train this year and he lives there with me.
That's fantastic. And tell me about the academy as well, because having the film made about your whole experience led to an academy, didn't it, to help other young people?
Yeah, there's a whole story there as well. But Ollie Bell and this incredible woman called Naomi Lawson, who helped me with my PR and media after the race, Ollie Bell and Ollie Bell's brother Phil had a conversation. We're like, we need to continue this momentum. How do we continue inspiring other young people like Khadijah? And they asked me, and I was like, the idea of an academy would be amazing. And Naomi Lawson wrote up this incredible pitch, went to the Racing Foundation, and they loved it. And they gave us a huge amount of money and funding to start this project. And we had a pilot year that was extremely successful. I've already got students that have graduated the program that are now working in the industry, that are now flying. I look at their riding technique and I'm like, wow, I've got competition. Genuinely, I will definitely have to race against some of these young people in probably a year or two. They're already making leaps and bounds within the industry. I've seen some of them on TV leading up horses that are winning races, and it's only been 3 years of the academy going so far, and there's already young people working and thriving within the industry. And we've got a huge amount of support from other people within the racing world, and the British Racing School has helped facilitate the academy, and we're expanding slowly, and I'm very grateful to the team around me and Naomi Lawson for getting it off the ground. And I now get to share my love of horse racing with so many other eager young people. And There's so much talent out there. I didn't know that I'd win that race. I didn't know I'd have a space in the racing world, and to be able to facilitate a path. And my brother has always had an interest in horse racing. He did pony racing as a kid, but there was no real avenue or pathway for him. And he tried. He contacted trainers. He did it solo, and he really struggled. Eventually, he was like, we don't have the luxury of generational wealth. I need to make money and work hard. So he went into a role in accounting and finance. But he still adores horse racing. He does bloodstock now and buying and selling of racehorses. So to be able to share my love of horse racing and facilitate a path for these young people is a blessing, and to see them and to share their journey and to see them winning. One of the young people we had called Mellah Aswat, she is incredible. She ran in the Magnolia Cup last year and came second. I got to cheer her across the line. I just thought, I get to relive this beautiful experience in a more maternal way, which is crazy because I'm only 24, but I don't know.
And do you still spend time there? Can you go and mentor them and spend time with the young trainee jockeys?
Absolutely. I try and make every scholarship session there is. I don't necessarily come to every residential because there's quite a few in the calendar, but any time I have available to go up to Newmarket to meet the students, especially the scholarship group, which is like the more advanced group, the training is more invasive and throughout the year. So I try my very best to mentor and provide support and advice where I can and set an example, because for me, I never had an example. I was very disconnected from everyone in the racing world. They didn't look like me. They didn't sound like me. So to be able to give them comfort and understanding that it's, it is a tough journey, but that's completely normal, and not to deter them. Because I think with horse racing, it's not necessarily like a traditional sport. The ball isn't going to suddenly decide to go left if you kicked it right. Do you know what I mean? With a horse, you can ask it to do one thing. Sometimes it goes south and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And that is really demoralizing. And I remember during my journey, there would be so many moments where I was just like, this is going really badly. No one can relate to my issues necessarily, or I didn't have a peer to connect with to soundboard my issues. I just call up my friends and they'd be like, that sounds tough, but like they wouldn't necessarily know what I'm talking about. To be able to, I think, find comfort in struggle and know that you're not alone, I think it would have really encouraged me and really helped me out. So I'm glad I'm able to do that for other young people, because I wish I had it.
And are you doing this for other young people who otherwise might not have the opportunity, because racing is an expensive sport and it's not within everybody's gift to do it?
So yeah, I think access is definitely the biggest thing. The kit is expensive. The British Racing School Foundation isn't necessarily expensive in terms of training, but to get involved initially is just so daunting. And if you're not familiar, if you don't have connections, if you don't have the networks, it's very difficult to stay. It's not actually too difficult to start, but to stay and to follow through is sometimes very difficult. Horse riding is very expensive. Horse racing isn't as expensive as you think, but it's tough. You need to dedicate your entire life. I'm talking getting up at 5:45 every morning, 6 days a week, coming in the afternoons. You just live, breathe horse. There's just nothing else. And it's so tough. It's whether it's sunshine, whether it's raining, whether it's cold, you just have to turn up and you have to be dedicated. And work ethic is hugely important in racing. And sometimes it's difficult to have that discipline. And for some of the young people, it's completely foreign to them. Being outdoors is completely new. I'm from Peckham. A lot of the kids that I work with are from Birmingham, Leicester. It's just new. It's too overwhelming for some young people. And again, a support system is so important. And I'm just so glad that there's a community out there for them. So that's the biggest thing for me, community support and a bit of motivation.
Tell me about racing now and what you're doing, Khadijah, and what your ambitions are.
For me, is to continue working hard. And I just got my license late last year. And even though it's sort of the off season for flat racing, getting a few rides under my belt would be a dream come true. Getting a win as an amateur would be the biggest thing for me, because I still encounter quite a bit of negativity online. People saying I've only won the one amateur charity race. I haven't really ridden a proper big race under rules. So for me, I hate this narrative that I'm the token Muslim girl. I want to ride and win under rules over and over again. I don't want to be a one-hit wonder. I want to represent the sport in the best way possible. I want to continue my training and win an amateur race under rules, not just be this one-hit wonder at Goodwood. I want to continue developing my riding ability and to represent the sport as best as possible. and continue to be a good example for the young students that I coach. And yeah, just win a few more races and try riding at different tracks, riding different horses. That's my ambition.
I've got quite a romantic image of you out training on the misty flats early morning, perhaps at Epsom, on magnificent horses, the sun rising. But I'm guessing from what you just said about the hard work that's involved, I'm sure there are moments like that, but it's not all like that. Can you give us a sense of how hard the training is and what you actually do, how hard it is physically and also how hard it perhaps is mentally as well?
So I think mental discipline, I think it's quite overlooked slightly in the racing world. And to be an athlete generally, you have to be disciplined. I don't want to speak for other sports, but getting up at 5:45, getting up at 5:30, sometimes in the dark, to go and feed the horses, muck them out, get on, tack up, multiple, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 horses a morning. And each horse has its personality. Each horse sometimes has an off day, sometimes has a good day. So even the horses that you think you've built a good rapport with, sometimes they think, I don't want to be up, I don't want to be here, I don't want to be training. You have to deal with the horses' mood swings as well, not only yours. And 1 out of 4 horses you'll be sat on that morning won't want to be there because they're tired or they're like, I just don't feel it this morning. And they'll give you a hard time and you'll have to have an argument with them. And the argument isn't necessarily that they don't want to go, because racehorses love running. I think that's another stigma that people don't realise. Racehorses love it. They love going fast. The issue is, if a horse is going fast every single morning, they're going to pick up an injury. So your job as a jockey, your job as a work rider is actually telling them to calm down and to chill them out and just do a nice bit of exercise, not a full sprint every morning. If you go too quickly every morning, they're not going to have any energy for their racing. So my job is continuously what I love to call sitting and suffering. You just have to sit there and sort of suffer, because what you're doing is you're holding this half-a-ton creature through your legs and through your arms. And if you physically try to fight with a horse, you're never going to win. It's all about technique. And sometimes it's in that mood, it wants to fly, and you just have to sit there and carry them and say, listen, you've got about 2.5 minutes on the track exercising this horse that wants to go completely flat out, and you're negotiating with this half-a-ton creature. Slow down. Your body is just like, because it's not just your arms that you're working, it's through your legs, through your core, through your back, through your shoulders. So all of your body sometimes is just aching, sitting and suffering. But that is the art of being a horseman and being a jockey. So yeah.
And what is it like? What does it feel like when you are absolutely flying and you want the horse to fly and everything's going well?
Two of my favourite things ever when it comes to horse racing is riding work, which is the faster pieces. When you're upsides, you're competing with another horse and you've got a set pace. Again, you're not completely going flat out, but you're doing like a faster bit of exercise with the horse next to you, and you can feel the competition between the two horses, and you can feel the horse is just loving it, flying underneath you. You're balanced and you still got a hold, you've still got control, and that fire that you feel underneath you when you're riding a racehorse is the best feeling ever. And when a good piece of work goes well and you're matched up with a good horse that's a similar speed, it's like a different kind of high. I don't even know how to explain it, because until you're there and you've experienced it, there's no real word for it. I think it's probably just like the most chaotic tranquility ever.
That's a good way of describing it.
And also the second thing that I love about horse racing is when you're jumping, when you go over some jumps and you're on a horse that loves to jump, gets the stride right and flies and soars over the jumps and makes a great motion and has good scope over the jump. I think a horse that loves jumping and schooling, I haven't done much of it, but the feeling is incredible.
Do you have any fear as well? Because obviously it's a risky sport, like many sports, but do you have any mechanism for ridding your mind of any worry or fear?
Any jockey or any athlete that says they never feel fear is a liar, especially with horse racing. Half the time, to be completely honest, certain horses make me shit myself all the time. You can edit that out if you want.
No, that's fine.
There are so many moments where I'm absolutely bricking it, and you just have to bite your tongue. And I think the sense of accomplishment you have after riding a horse that you're kind of nervous on, you're not feeling completely confident on, that accomplishment feeling that you have when it goes well or you make it through and power through the session is one of the best feelings. And my confidence doesn't get better unless I challenge myself. And there are so many mornings where I'm like, I'm not feeling it and I don't feel confident. I'm not sure if I'm strong enough for this. But when you get through the morning, you ride your horse, and you ride your horses, sometimes it's 4, and, you know, it goes well. Again, you just feel like this is what I'm here to do. This is the dedication. This is why I deserve a place in this sport, and this is why I deserve my win. And I think winning the Magnolia Cup after 3 months of training was a huge achievement, but also a shock to my system. You know, spending 1.5 to 2 years training this year and last year and winning after getting my license as an amateur jockey this year would probably be a huge achievement for me. I've been in hospital quite a few times last year from my training and for riding some really challenging and difficult horses. Winning with my license this year will mean so much more because I've really worked hard and grafted. I'm very excited to hopefully achieve that.
I'm sure it's going to happen for you. It made me smile looking at your Instagram the other day because you were back at Goodwood recently, and it says on your Instagram that you're adrenaline obsessed. This time you were at the Festival of Speed. What were you up to there? Something I would like to have done, actually.
The reason why I haven't raced in 5 years was because as much as I loved the racing experience at Goodwood, it was again a surprise. My original journey, my original goal was to finish my academic studies, get those A-levels and go and do an engineering degree. And when I set my mind on a goal or I put myself on a path or I have an ambition, it's really difficult to sort of deter or to divert from that goal. When I finished the Magnolia Cup, as much as I loved the experience, my ambition was still to go and get that engineering degree. So I went to Brighton University for 4 years and did a mechanical engineering degree. And even though it was really challenging, I thought I was going to drop out and I thought, no, I can't do this, especially during lockdown. Oh my God, I don't know if you have ever done a thermofluids lecture.
No, I haven't.
Via Zoom.
Oh dear.
It is not fun. But yeah, I found it really difficult. The first year was really fun. Second year was really hard. Third year, nearly dropped out. Fourth year, stuck to it. And it was back in person, you know, finished my dissertation, focused on hydrogen combustion emissions and looking at split cycle engines and hydrogen as a fuel, alternative fuel resource. And fell in love with my course again and fell in love with the motorsports industry, became obsessed with F1. I had a motorbike at the time, Honda CBR. Crashed it, unfortunately, last year. So I was back in hospital. Anyway, horse racing was a new obsession, but my original obsession has always been physics and cars and motorbikes. And weirdly enough, horse racing kind of has links in both industries. Through my love of horses, I got an opportunity to attend the Revival Festival at Goodwood and also the Festival of Speed, which is a huge car show. And the Jockey Club has affiliations and partners with Aston Martin. And Aston Martin, luckily enough, were very generous to let me sit in their Valkryie. And I was allowed to ride that up the Goodwood Hill. And it was an incredible experience, probably one of the highlights of my year. And it's weird how everything fits together. And my ambitions for the long-term future is to hopefully have a space in the motorsports world as well as the horse racing world.
Were you behind the wheel?
So I was a passenger princess, but the driver was Peter Dunbrek, who is a Formula 3 champion. And he was really cool to speak to about his experiences. He's also had a few major incidents in his Formula 1 career, Formula 3 career. And as a driver, you know, he's been through so much. And to hear about his journey, and it's weird how in all sports, there's a similar story of struggle and adversity, and he didn't come from money either. And hearing about his story, and you know, you think horse racing is expensive to get into, or horse riding is expensive to get into, but just the motorsports world generally, karting, oh my God, the amount of money that goes into that is absurd. What they need is a Riding a Dream Academy.
Well, you know, I'm feeling good things here. You've got your riding academy set up already, and with your degree behind you. I mean, you really are, Khadijah. You're an extraordinary young woman and doing amazing things. I mean, I really have socks your age. You're so young and doing more things than I would ever dare dream of doing in a whole lifetime. I also saw on your Instagram a photograph of you with Queen Camilla at an event with King Charles just a few weeks ago under the heading From Peckham to the Palace.
Yeah.
What were you up to there?
Again, this is what I love about sport. This is what I love about horse racing. The field has connections everywhere. You know, the late Queen Elizabeth loved horses, loved horse racing. There are still loads of horses owned by the royal family that race under her colours. And I'm very lucky to say that even within Ebony, they were huge supporters of the Ebony Horse Club and have been a supporter of my journey since. I'm very lucky to say that they include me and invite me to different royal occasions, and I was lucky enough to have a catch up with them at the palace a few months ago now. It's quite interesting because the people there were meeting Her Majesty and His Majesty for the first time, whereas obviously through racing and through my riding club, I'd met them a few times. It was just like, it was weird because I was still obviously in awe, but it was like a catch up. And for a lot of people, they were like, it's nice to meet you. And I was like, it's good to see you again.
And do they say nice things about your racing? Because obviously they know what you've achieved.
Yeah, they are huge supporters of my journey, and they're very keen to stay updated and in touch with my progression. And I told Her Majesty Camilla that I'd got my license to race again, and she was like, you're going to have to sit on a few of my horses then, because we need a few more winners. And I was like, it would be an honour and a privilege. And who knows? I mean, I'm not sure if her horses might be too good for my racing this year, but fingers crossed, who knows, to be able to ride Her Majesty's horses and to win would be, again, another dream come true and a great story. We shall see.
We shall see. It's 2025 now, and who knows what the new year is going to hold. I have a feeling perhaps in another year or two, Khadijah, that I'll be calling you, asking you to come back because you'll have done something else extraordinary. It's been just a treat to sit here. I knew it would be, but it's been a real treat to listen to your story and also to listen a little bit about your family and your mom. So thank you for being so giving, and good luck with everything. I need to see you now on Her Majesty's horses. I think that's a great goal.
Hopefully we can achieve it this year.
You've been listening to our 200th episode with the UK's first hijabi jockey and fantastic role model, Khadijah Mellah. Don't forget to download and subscribe to our series at convex.podbean.com or search The Convex Conversation on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to yours. I'll be back next week with blind climber Jessie Dufton, whose lead ascent of the Old Man of Hoy was the subject of a multi-award-winning documentary and earned him a Guinness World Record. So join me then.